Thank you for taking time to come and listen to how we can get back to work a little bit more efficiently, as well as continuing to follow the guidelines to protect each other so that we can continue to see the cases go, I would like to say go down, but flatten, do something. Diedre Ebrey with the City of Moore is going to give us some insight into the adjustments that are being made on a city level so that our businesses can safely reopen. So if everyone will please mute yourselves. And if you have any questions, please input them into chat. If you want to wait till the end, you can ask your questions of her then. Other than that, thank you guys very much. Diedre, you have the floor.
Very good. Thank you very much, Kim. Just another big thank you to the Moore Chamber of Commerce for facilitating these. I think they're super helpful. I know they are to me. I haven't been able to be on a lot, but anytime that we can get together and facilitate discussion, hear innovative ideas of what people are doing and try to get out the most current information, we'll take that opportunity every time. So information has been a very difficult thing to wrestle with through this process. And so just so you know, during a crisis or an emergency, I actually kind of fall back into, not back, forward into public affairs and public relations as per our emergency declaration. So I've actually been having or doing a lot more messaging and information for the entire city and not been able to do just a lot about economic development, but they kind of dovetail, especially with this opening process. So I'm just going to go through some of the facts of what's happened, and some of these you may already know and be very aware of. I think I have the most accurate, most up-to-date information, but I could be wrong on that too. So feel free to interject if there's a discrepancy in any of this. So what happened last week is the governor came out with his plan for a phased opening approach, and he did that through a press conference on Tuesday, but he did not issue his executive order until late in the afternoon on Friday. So basically what happens is that he goes out with a press conference with his intent of how things are going to go, and then based on the media's questions and the PAC groups and just the different things that come up, then they formulate better what that order is going to look like. Nothing changed in the executive order that came out on Friday relative to most of the phased opening processes. So a lot of the changes were in healthcare and healthcare related issues, and so there were some changes with that. So we knew that was our indicator on Tuesday as to how the state was likely going to proceed. But again, that's just likely. We didn't know for certain until Friday how that was going to happen. So then from that point forward, City Council took that under consideration and made the decision that on Friday we would repeal our existing emergency proclamation, which was in place up until we actually had the date, April the 29th. So we repealed that emergency proclamation on Friday, which then started us on Saturday morning falling up under the state of Oklahoma's emergency proclamation and or state order with regard to COVID-19. So one of the specific things of that is it took away our shelter in place, and we then re-entered into safer at home, which is what the governor calls his safer at home policy for vulnerable population. And again, I just would encourage everybody to really read. I think I put most of the websites up here, but actually I have the actual order from the governor somewhere. But again, the safer at home is a suggestion for those in the vulnerable population, which he defines in his executive order. And again, it's the age requirement and then pre-existing conditions. So the main part of all of this is that the city no longer has any sort of decreed policy in place. So we are up under the state of Oklahoma solely and totally. So there is no extra layer that anybody needs to know about what does the city require. Is this different than what the state is requiring? That is not the case for Moore, Oklahoma. So anything that's required of the state of Oklahoma, and again, very, 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 if anything is required, it's just suggested and or laid out in a guideline. That's what businesses and residents will need to follow, is the state of Oklahoma's order regarding sheltering in place, safer at home. And again, it's just safer at home currently. The 3-phase rollout is up and currently functioning. There were some caveats to the phase 1, which were allowed to open April the 24th, I believe, and those were the personal services. And again, because we actually had to amend our proclamation in the middle of the night on Thursday to be able to allow those to open on Friday and not conflict what the state was, we thought, likely going to come up with. So there's just been a lot of interesting pieces to this, but just, I can't say enough about our city council members and our mayor and the work that they've done behind the scenes and the laborious hours that they've put into discussing this. And as you know, this is a very, very big decision to make. And there's so many factors that I would take up hours and hours and hours to go over those. But they took everything to heart, and they made the very best decisions that they thought for the residents of the city of Moore and for the commercial businesses that operate here. So with that, then it now flips completely and totally to you guys. The government, as far as the city government, is out of it. So now the opportunity falls to business owners to follow the guidelines, to exceed the guidelines, to shirk the guidelines, whatever happens. That's a business owner's decision, and there are no enforcements within the city government that will regulate how that happens. So you can see that as a positive thing, or you can see that as a scary thing, or you can see that as both, and it's probably somewhere in between with regards to that. So the city will no longer have any enforcement or a response to any COVID-related issues. An example, though, would be if a customer is shopping in a location and that location owner says that they require masks to be worn within that location. That is not a requirement, it is a suggestion. It is a suggestion from the state of Oklahoma. If the business owner asks that customer to leave because they are uncomfortable with that person's lack of desire and or willingness to wear a mask, then that becomes a trespassing issue. So then that person is a trespasser onto private property, and that's then and only then when a police officer would respond to something like that. The hope is that it doesn't get to that place, but I just want you to be aware of what the reality is. And then two, it will be people's perception of what they perceive to be the rules, the law, the mandates, of which there are very, very few, if any, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. In fact, last night, I think there was a KFOR story that talked about masks being required. And so I immediately scurried through all of my data to make sure nothing had changed, and nothing has changed. They are encouraged. And the guidelines on these websites will say business owners are encouraged to require, are encouraged to provide, are encouraged to ask customers and employees to wear masks, to take temperatures, those types of things. No mandates, all suggestions. Phase 1 starts May 1, and that's virtually a lot of businesses. If you're not familiar with the phase 1 process, dining establishments, except bars. Pretty much bars are phase 3, and that's kind of it. But again, all of that is on the website, and it's called an R's plan, and it's opening up safely. What's it stand for? Opening up and recover safely. So OURS, open up and recover safely. That's on the Department of Commerce's website. So phase 1, the early phase 1 was hair salons, barbershops, spas, nail salons, pet groomers. So they were allowed to open on Friday and can continue to be open. That's their prerogative, whether to open or not. And we can talk about that a little bit further. And then opening May 1, and this would be phase 1, based on the state of Oklahoma's guidelines, would be dining areas, entertainment, movie theaters, and sporting venues. And I will tell you that movie theaters were in phase 2 up until literally, I'm going to say Thursday night. And then movie theaters made it up back into phase 1. But most of you have seen that the Warren Theater has put out information on how Regal is going to manage that. And their current decision is that they likely will not open any Regal Theater until around the end of July. Specifically on that, they're not making movies right now. So that's a good example of a business that might potentially be able to open, but the profitability of opening with the restrictions that are being asked and that they feel obligated to follow might not allow them to open profitably. So opening safely and profitably would be the sweet marriage of this whole thing. Phase 2 begins May the 15th. And that's everything that wasn't opened up in phase 1. And then phase 3, the goal is June 1. The other interesting part is this kind of gets into what we wrestled with essential, non-essential businesses, which, by the way, was just truly like horrific in trying to determine who was and wasn't essential. And there were very few guidelines originally put out. And then as we went, and it was obvious how difficult it was to determine, then more and more guidelines came out from the state. I think they're going to get into the very same thing about somebody asking, am I phase 1? Am I phase 2? Am I phase 3? What am I? And again, a lot of people will be calling the city for that information, and we will just have to immediately transfer them to the state and say it would be a state's decision. But the state does have a form on their R's website, and basically you can fill it out and tell them what you do and what you are, and they will get back with you about what phase you would open in or could open in. I'm not going to get into the criteria for what puts us into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, because again, that's a state decision. The state is watching the data, the state is setting that criteria, and the state is working the gating process of who goes into phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. I'll leave it at that. I honestly think that's pretty much everything I have. I just needed to, and I just appreciate Kim and Kathy so much for working with me, because as of last week around Thursday, we weren't sure if the city would have more restrictions. And so I really felt it was important that we talk as soon as possible today in case we did happen to have our own emergency proclamation and we're needing to add a separate layer. I thought it would be really, really important that we push that out. We are not, and so I now get to only have to talk about one layer of regulations and guidelines. Guidelines is a better word than regulations, just so you know. Guidelines for businesses to follow. So that is a very long introduction into questions, comments, and curiosities.
If anyone has any questions, you are more than welcome to unmute yourself.
I have a question.
Okay, Michael.
Me. I had talked to Diedre a little bit before this, and so I just kind of wanted to throw something out there as a, so in phase 1, and I'm going to specifically talk about our business. So if I read the guidelines or suggestions, and it tells me that I should not have more than 50 people in my facility, and I decide to have 150 people in my facility, then I have decided not to take that suggestion, and I'm going to do that. Nobody's going to come and slap me on the hand or tell me I shouldn't do that. But in the court of public opinion, I might get lambasted. And there might be customers that say, what are you guys doing? This is stupid. But as far as from a legal standpoint, or I could basically do that, but that's at my own peril.
That is in essence correct.
The state chamber is actually having a conversation or talking about trying to put together some legislation to protect businesses from the potential liability associated to claims that may be filed against your business should someone contract and so on and so forth. There has not been anything finalized with that, but there is the conversation already starting, at least at the state chamber. So when you say something like that, take that liability concept as well, that you may not get fined by the city, but should someone come that is asymptomatic or something along those lines, and then something gets contracted and then they trace it back to your location, unless legislation is in place, there is a possibility that you could not be protected.
Great
Right.
point. Thank
And so what we are recommending, and again, this is just anecdotally to you guys and to anybody who, cares to ask our opinion, is that businesses obviously follow the guidelines as closely as they possibly can, and in some instances maybe even exceed those guidelines, because that, again, the public opinion piece. Now, again, everybody's coming at it with their own idea of what they believe to be correct, right, just, legal, all of those things. But a potentially good way to help customers peace of mind might be to take some of these recover safely criteria, blow them up on a poster as big as day, and put them out and about so that people can easily refer to what the state is recommending, and then right beside it post your plan and what you're doing, and this is what we're doing, and we're checking the box on these 3, we're exceeding these 2, our distances are 8 feet as opposed to the 6 foot suggestion, those types of things. So I think to take every effort you can within reason, and that's cost effective, to sign, to clearly state, to let people know how it's going to be when they enter your business. If you are requiring masks, make sure that they know that before they get in, because the embarrassment piece could just exacerbate a situation that could have been potentially handled with just really good signage. So, but again, that's a cost. And so if you are having to spend a lot of money in buying sanitizer, which is hard to find still, and you say you're going to sanitize and you're going to properly clean, well, somebody may ask to see what that cleaner is, and they may want to know what kinds of disinfectants are you using. So I would recommend having that available, having those labels available, talking about where you've ordered those from, where you get them. Do you have supply on hand enough to where if you were to open up even more so in a week, do you have that? We had to go through that same thing at City Hall. So we had to make sure that we were ready to receive the public, and that sure does mean a whole lot more than what it used to mean. So I do not envy the position that you're in, but I think it's an opportunity to show your customers who you are, what you're made of, what you do. And I've definitely heard from businesses that are getting very much a lot of pressure from their either employees, but also mainly customers, to open sooner than what that business thinks is, again, safe and or profitable. So just hold your ground, but you can't necessarily lean back on the mandates, because those aren't there. Those are suggestions. So just know that you have to say, based on the suggestions that are given to us, we feel this is the most important for our business at this time, and be comfortable with that.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I was just going to put in our plan for Showplace is a lot of signage, and so it's very clear from the windows. We're going to encourage social distancing, checkout. We encourage masks, whatever their comfortability on all that. But also we are still offering curbside for those that don't want to come in. But the great thing is Boss Print is printing all that for me and has a retail package already in place. So if you are kind of overwhelmed with where do I start with a sign, he already has all that done, and he has stickers for the floor to space out 6 feet. So I would encourage to call Boss Print, and it's a local print shop too.
That's exactly what I would love for this group to do. And even if not on this call, but just in your other smaller circles or large circles or on social media, but just continue to share those innovative ideas. And you might not think they're innovative, but I promise you somebody else might hear that and say, never thought about, footsteps on the ground, little decals of footprints to show people where to stand and make sure that it's 6 feet apart from each other, those types of things. I would hope that you could do this very inexpensively, but I don't want to assume that that's possible necessarily. But I think it is just a kind of an over communication effort, and maybe weekly, definitely rechecking your signage, rechecking this data that's on these websites that I've shared. Y'all, I mean, seriously, so there are discrepancies. You probably don't want to hear this, but there are discrepancies between the Department of Health's protocol suggestions and the Department of Commerce protocol suggestions. So if you lay the eating establishments next to the restaurants, I assumed those were the same thing. So I went ahead and took a chance, put those beside each other, and they are similar, but they're not identical. And obviously the health department is adding a few things in from the CDC. Commerce is more aligned with business and industry, but also the date. Look at the date on when these things were written. A lot of the Department of Health protocols were written back in March, and now Commerce is coming up with what they consider to be new guidelines based on this gating and phasing and approach. So just be super sleuthy about the data that you pull. And just because it's on a state website doesn't mean that it's necessarily completely accurate. I've also found a few typos in there, which, you know, if you really got down to it, you could argue that. But just take that information off and keep re-looking at it, because the minute, and sorry to say, the minute you make a big, huge poster of, you know, something, it could change. My guess is that it might, if we all continue to do a good job, then we might lessen some of these, and 6 feet may become 8 feet. I don't know when, and I'm just using that as an example. But just make sure that your signage matches what the current guidelines are, and kind of keep checking those guidelines, because I do feel like they will be tweaked possibly as we continue to go forward.
All the links that she put on the chat will be very soon posted on our COVID page of our website. So should you need to link to them or have access to them, you'll have quick and easy access there. Jenny, thank you very much for giving us the retail information package that Boss has put together. We all firmly believe in supporting our local businesses wherever we can. Does anyone have any additional questions? Chris, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, thanks for doing this morning, Diedre. One question: as a city building, do you guys have the official signage that you'll be putting up? Because that way we can get those up on our building as well.
Well, that's a great question. So it's about as official as me making it. So there you go. Don't let that rock your world. But I have been making it based on department heads request. So I would say if you would go through, Greg and Mark they've been putting up plexiglass and whatnot here. I would say you would call them over and say, here's what I want, here's what I feel like I need. And that's what department heads have been doing. We just go around and look at a particular public area and we say, well, this makes sense, let's do these things. Then we price it out and then we execute what that looks like. So yes, we would provide those pieces of signage. And again, they can be very specific. I made some for parks for the walking trails, and then we loosened it up a little bit and made it a little more overarching for all parks and recreation venues, so we can use them inside and outside. And speaking of signage, y'all, there's both of these websites, but specifically the health department resources and recommendations page. I feel like it's the very first one under the Oklahoma Health Department. There are actual posters that you can, oh, I'd love to show you. I just don't know how to do that. Anywho, really well done posters that have the state health department, logo on that. So again, you know where it comes from, and that are very, very appealing to shoppers and to patrons and things like that. You can print those off on 11 by 17 like that. No, all you need is a color printer and 11 by 17 paper. So definitely use those and keep those fresh and keep those out there in front of customers, because they can look very appealing and they can actually teach someone what is expected. Next thing also to talk about are your employees. We are really striving here. I hope we're meeting the goal of teaching our employees what we expect from our patrons, and they have to model what we expect. And so the minute any employee deviates from one of your said protocols, somebody, a customer, is going to be watching for that. So I know you know that, and it saddens me that we're to that place. But again, I'm thinking they're coming out of the place of fear and just wanting to do the right thing and point out a better way. We'll just leave it at that. So just continue to remind your employees that whatever you're requiring of your customers, that we have to model what that looks like for us in every way, shape, and form. And also, employees also are telling us, and it's none of you, but some of the larger businesses, they're afraid to go to work because of the lack of protocols that they've seen in place. Now, a lot of the larger businesses have come full circle and they're doing a way better job than they were. That's good. But OSHA does have a hotline set up so that if an employee feels like they are being asked to work in an unsafe work environment, there are ways in which they can notify OSHA, and OSHA could potentially work that claim. So, yes.
Sources and recommendation page that Diedre was referencing, I could pull it up here real quick, but it is ridiculous the amount of information that is available to you on that. There are employee information, there's healthy environment guidance for non-essential service-based businesses, there's the posters, there are Spanish versions of the posters, and then there are additional guidance available for churches, cleaning, disinfecting. If you have asthma, cancer, diabetes, I mean, there's a ton of information that is available to you on there. So again, we'll get that posted on our website here very soon so that you can have immediate access to it. Some of those images actually are already available on our COVID page to help assist you with that.
I also just now posted the City of Moore's page that shows that we did rescind the emergency proclamation. So in case somebody's confused about, oh no, Moore is requiring something more stringent and yada, yada, yada. We are not. And so if this helps in any way, the mayor's memo rescinding the emergency proclamation is on there. You can print that. Anything you need, anything that you need that you think we could provide to help you convey the messaging, I am happy to hear from you and do what I can to provide that to you. But a lot of it is on the website.
So you've made all businesses essential, correct?
Yeah, that term is actually no longer even being used. So at this point, it's down to phasing. So it sure sounded powerful that I did make them all essential, but that went away. And so now it is just who can open when based on the phasing guidelines. And again, if you're unsure which phase you're in, I would just tell you we could try to help kind of ferret through some of the guidelines and the criteria, but if you really want to know, you can fill a form out that's on one of those. I feel like it's several, frankly. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's the fourth one down. There's also a Department of Labor website. They are doing a webinar that REI is sponsoring, I think this Wednesday, Department of Labor, more for leave. So if you have employees and you need to know what is changed with the leave requirements and things like that, that Department of Labor website will tell you about those webinars that you can pop on for that. What else?
I did actually have kind of a question. You said something about the parks and kind of opening those back up. So are like the station and that's
kind of. So then we had to quickly turn into employer mode and realize that we are a large employer with public buildings and then a gym and some of those other things. So the station can only open after May 1, and they will open with the guidelines set forth based on recreation areas and gyms, most parts of the station. Other parts of the station can currently be open, but not the recreation facility portions of that. The Brand Senior Center will continue to remain closed until an undetermined time. The parks can all be currently opened and should be most likely based on our manpower to get out and cut through some of the tape and barbed wire and everything else that we had to use to secure them and close them down. people were actually cutting through most of our barricades that we tried to put up as just visual reminders that things were closed. So apparently visual reminders didn't do a lot. So we had to go into physical barriers to close off tennis courts, for example. But those can all currently be opened. And again, it's all based on the business's prerogative as to if they can open safely, and if they can open adequately based on these timelines. So best I know, everything that we have in the city that can be open is open, with some variations based on the actual departments. But parks should be open wide, and the station will open May 1 with guidelines. We all are trying to follow the guidelines recommended.
Oh shoot. Okay, so in the order, it talks about sporting venues, and one of the conversations that I've had with people is in regards to the Little League program, the baseball. Are we opening Thomas up for baseball?
That is a parks question, and I don't know. My take is that currently they are all in practice mode right now, and that there are no games to be played. If anybody knows that differently, let me know.
It's practice mode.
It's practice mode. Okay, so so parks will be in touch with the state's guidelines, and they will determine, are we a recreational facility, and what does that look like? And then if that's the case, when could they be open? But it looks like, I think that's phase 2. Am I right? Recreational facilities is phase 2.
So yes.
I feel like it is.
It falls in line with.
I only have 52 tabs open, so surely one of these will tell me what phase 2 is. But anyway, so that would be May 15th.
It is.
And so I don't know as of now what they have determined for that, but I don't feel like they have to be open right now, because I feel like there's no league play and or game play currently scheduled. And again, even if we were to open, the process of getting things pulled together. So just like salons were able to open on Friday, however, they just found out about it like Friday morning or Thursday evening. Well, most didn't have product in place. They didn't have their clients weren't taking appointments. They weren't taking appointments, because why would you take an appointment if you didn't know if you could be open or not? So just fundamentally, it was difficult to get open, even though you're allowed to be open. So we'll have some of those. And I don't even know how to handle the information and the misinformation about businesses that are choosing not to be open. We definitely don't want to give the impression that these businesses are going bankrupt or that they're not coming back or anything to that effect. I mean, Warren Theater obviously is making a very important decision based on what they know to be their internal workings, and the ordering and the revving up of that monster of an organization is going to take them time. And so they're choosing not to open until such time as they can open safely and profitably. So I just want to encourage everybody to help be ambassadors for the potential rumor mill out there of businesses that are closed or bankrupt, or had COVID in the building and had to be had their whole ventilation system ripped out or whatever. Maybe they were, I don't know. But the point of the matter is that everybody's situation is very personal to them as a business. And so if we can all just be really respectful of people's decisions on how they open, when they open, that would just be really great. I'm preaching to the choir on that, but if we have a big enough choir, then maybe we'll be heard, and maybe we can be influential in that.
Okay, does anyone have any additional questions for Miss Diedre? If not, her cell number. No, I'm
Yep.
just kidding.
No, pass it out, please, y'all. Hey,
her
that's
address is go by the house.
That's how we learn. If it wasn't for questions, I mean, you guys, the minute somebody asks you a question, Chris Manna, and then you think, did we even remember about the library? Did we even think through that? I mean, that's how we become better. So when you ask us questions, even if they've been asked before, it's coming from you. It's coming from a different industry. It's coming at a different time. It's coming right after we just heard something, whatever. Please don't ever hesitate. And yeah, it's crazy around here. It's nuts. But if I can get asked and answer one question collectively, that just saves from 42 different independent texts and or questions. So we love questions. And again, the better part is that we're deferring pretty much all questions. So feel free to ask me, and don't feel bad if I shoot you an email, a website to reference, because that's the best part about a lot of this, is that we really just have to defer to the state on all of this and just help push that messaging out. But a one voice process on this will be far easier than people trying to discern who said what, whose rules cover us, when do they cover us, when do they stop covering us. That became very, very difficult to manage.
Okay.
Anybody? You've got her undivided attention right now. This is it.
I'm ready.
Ask away.
Okay.
I'm not going anywhere either. So you can ask me in 5 minutes and I'll still be here probably. I'm going to go find some good water though that's actually cold, and then I'll be right back here sitting doing anything. I'm going to put my cell phone number up. I love text too.
There you go. That is the bat line to Diedre. So if you have any questions that you were not feeling comfortable asking in a public forum, please feel free to reach out to her. She does know. And if she doesn't know, she knows exactly where to send you. So thank you guys very much again for taking time out of your day. Our next one is tomorrow with Congressman Cole, assuming that somebody doesn't call him back to DC today for something. So look forward to seeing you then. Thank you guys very much, and have a very blessed day. Hopefully the wind will go down and the sun will stay out. Woo-hoo. That's what we say. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Thank you to everyone for getting on.
Yes, thanks guys so much.